Hello and welcome to this edition of Elvenhome, which is a bit shorter than usual. I've spent quite a lot of the last 2 weeks concerned with the Bowness and Kinneil Railway, which we've had to suspend the running season until at least the end of June because of the COVID-19. That's the only mention we're going to get in this video. So I've really only been able to work on the coaling stage and the work that I said I wanted to do to complete the incline, and I've not completely finished it, but we're getting there. So we'll get straight into the video and you can see through here the work that I've done there, and I'll come and speak to you again at the end. You may recall that in the last video I mentioned that that I had to have this higher than just sitting on the floor, because sat there's not sufficient space underneath to take a locomotive and its tender beneath the pony trucks, which are in here. You can see them if I bring this a little bit closer. The two little pony trucks which take the coal. The coal comes up into here, it's emptied onto the floor, shoveled into the pony trucks, and then the pony trucks tipped into the tender. And I needed to raise it by, I thought, about 6 millimeters. In fact, it's nearer to 10 centimeters to get it to the right height that a locomotive and tender can sit underneath. I was trying to work out in my head how I would do it and started fiddling with a few things, and suddenly realized that I'd got quite a long way forward and hadn't taken any pictures of myself doing it as I was going along. So I've stopped at this point just to talk you through what I've done so far, and then I'll come back when I've done the next stage, when by then it should be ready to go on to the layout. So the base itself is simply some foam board, 3 sheets of foam board stuck together. It's this stuff, which is 3 millimeter foam board, but with the card either side, it makes it, no, it's 3 millimeters with the 2 cards either side, that's right. And then I put some, I think it's Slater's 2 millimeter brick card, this stuff. Obviously cut it to size, put that around the edges, and then painted it using the same colour paint as was used for the model, which is, if I bring it back from here, it's a dark brick red. It's an enamel paint, a matte colour that was recommended for the coal stage. So those two match. On top has gone a 0.25 millimeter strip Evergreen Models card, which handily, because cutting these with the right number of courses gave me a tiny lip, which turns out to be 0.25 millimeters. Sometimes the modelling gods work for you. So this card was put in and just painted a dark grey, and you'll see that I've put, this is also a Slater's card. Is it Slater's card? Yes, it is. Which is actually roof slates for 00 gauge. But I've used it a lot for capping stones, pavements, and you may be able to see there that I've cut 2 notches out so that when the base sits on here, it slots into position. The steps, oops, if I get it in the right place, there we go. The steps come onto the front. So that is done, and that gives me, they can come down the stairs and walk through to get into this door. So that's that bit done so far. The next thing that I need to do is to build up this section, which will carry the bridge from the top of the incline into the loading or unloading bay of the coal stage. Now at the moment, let me get rid of the things I've already shown you. So again, it's foam board to give it a bit of sturdiness, some more of the card on the front. That's had 2 coats of paint so far. Looking at it, it probably needs a third. You can see the streakiness here. It's very strange painting this. That required 3 coats, as did this. And the third coat must even out in some way because it gives you a really nice finish. So those need to be painted again just to be given a more even look to them. Once I've got these 2 in position, they will obviously go like that, and then a piece of card will sit on top. That has had some primer put on it and is going to be painted a dark grey colour, and at the same time I'm going to do the ramp which completes the incline down to ground level. That has had to be raised also to get the pitch of the incline right, and that's just been done by sticking a 1mm piece of card on the bottom, which you can see, and that just has raised the angle sufficiently. So the next thing I'm going to do is paint up those, fit this together and fit it onto here, and then it'll be time to turn our attention to the ramp itself on the main layout. So I'll come back when all that's done and talk you through the next piece. I had intended not to come back to this until it was all finished and on the layout, but I thought it's better to show you things as I'm building them, and I did decide to build something else relating to this, which I wanted to show you, and which makes more sense to build now than wait until we've got it on the layout. So the first thing is that I completed the side piece, if I pull it out from behind, there we go, that will provide the connection from the incline into the coaling stage. That is obviously the pieces that I showed you before, with its floor and then a bracing piece to help keep it level. And then this here, these walls here, are made by taking, if I show you on this side, there's a piece of 2mm Slater's card, no, strip styrene, 2mm thick strip styrene, a sheet of it which I've cut what I needed, and then I put obviously walls either side from the Slater's 2mm brick card, but this wall, as you can probably, if I bring it in, just see, extends about 5mm longer down this side, and I use that to attach it to the wall, and then it sits on the road bed here. And obviously I've cut out a section there because that's where the bridge goes. So that sits into that side. And whilst I was doing that, it just made sense to start building the wall for the other side. If I move this across, this is now stuck down onto the base. And so I've started building the wall that will take two trucks and a buffer stop on that side, so that you could get a maximum, I think, of about 4 trucks up the incline at any one time. And this again is no more than the foam board with the 2mm brick card. I've put brick card inside, and what I'm now going to do is build the end wall, which I will also make out of the foam board, and cover that. I'm thinking about how I cover the ends, because I want to make the wall look as though it's been slightly reinforced, just in case a train decides to go a bit further than it should. Although frankly, if a train with of any weight hit any wall of this kind, that's going to go over, and that will then sit there. If let's push that back a bit to get it in shot completely. That is what it will look like once it's sat on the layout. And I'm going to put some capping stones on this side, because these walls are heavier and chunkier, because it's the head shunt, essentially the top of the line. So I will complete making this wall, and then we will go on to the layout and look about how I bring all these bits together, because I've not quite yet worked out how I'm going to attach this to the incline to the plastic ramp, and disguise it all so that it doesn't look as though it's 3 separate pieces. But I'll come back once I've completed this work and we're back on the layout. Well, as you can see, what looks a bit desolate now, I've taken all the locomotives and the engine sheds off and have painted the cork, partly because of what I'm going to be doing here. If I put myself to there now, jolly good. I've completed the work on the coaling stage. As you can see, it's got the walls attached now. In the end, I just glued them on. It was a much easier thing to fix it all together than I feared it might be, and I'm quite happy with how that's turned out. What you can see in front of you, if I just come round, is what I intend to do by way of the wall, which is to mirror essentially what I did with the wall up the incline. So it's a stepped wall so you can't see the incline, that boxes it in both sides. So I've cut 2 sets of these are just foam board, and I'll be putting these with some scale model scenery texture papers. If I get one of them, which is just drying, having just printed it out, if I bring that in there, it's going to be this colour, partly because I didn't really want to use plastic card for the whole of it and paint it all up. I like all of the area up there being that colour brick, but I wouldn't want lots of it on the railway. This is a bit closer to the colour of the engine sheds, and so I think I'm going to stick with that. So the next job for me is to cover all of these with the brick paper and create the walls. And what I will probably do, if I knock the walls down now, you'll see that I've painted the incline so that that's done. I'll take a view about how much I try and coat that with grass at the top, because obviously you're not going to see much of it below, but it would be quite good to have some scenic. And then on the top there will be ballast where the track is down, I think. So that's the next bit of work for me for this afternoon. And I'll come back once I've got the walls built and on the layout. Well, I had hoped that when I came back here I would have had the wall completely finished, but as is always the way, the channel that I want to use for capping stones, I don't have the right one. So it's whether I take my life in my hands and go out to Harbour Hobbies again this week to get the channel, or wait until I can get it delivered. So the wall is not completely finished, as you might guess. It's still got the what will be the capping stones on the top of the wall to go on, and also capping stones on each of the buttresses, which I've left room for this time. When I built the wall at the back, I didn't always leave room for capping stones, but I have this time. The track is also now laid right through the coaling stage, and I can also show you the latest addition on the layout. While I was in Harbour Hobbies earlier this week, I saw the new Ginty in the cupboard and thought that would look very good on my layout, and indeed it does. So let's see if we can get this to go up into the coaling stage, which is how it's supposed to go. Ooh. Driver a bit keen there, but as you can see, that's how it would work. I won't be running trains up here very often. This is more for display than anything else, but I did just want the satisfaction of knowing that it would work. So that completes this section, and probably just leaves now for me to round off this edition of Elvenhome, and I'll speak to you again in just a moment. Well, that just about wraps up this edition of Elvenhome. I hope you've enjoyed it. It's a bit shorter than I might have wanted, but I hope you'll understand the reasons why. It's quite likely over the next 10 to 12 weeks that I shall have plenty of time on my hands to work on the railway, and we should be able to get to see things move along, so long as I've got the kit or can have it delivered, because I shall be being socially distant. I don't fortunately have a reason to really stay away. I'm not in the high risk groups. But I'm sure all of us will be working on our railways. If I've got enough to put up a video weekly, I will do, but I'm not going to promise that, because I don't want to just push stuff out just for the sake of it. I do actually want to have something decent to show you. So if you've liked the video, please do give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, well, please do subscribe. It'd be great to have you along. And if you've got any comments, of course, please do let me have your comments. I suspect at this time, when we're all incarcerated, exchanging comments through YouTube will be quite a good way to keep in touch with one another. So until I speak to you again, possibly in a week, but certainly in a fortnight's time, that's bye-bye from me. Bye-bye.